So fast oxidative glycolytic muscle fibers will also experience a hyperplasia and increase in size. This will therefore allow an athlete to exert greater force for a slightly longer period of time, for example 400-meter sprinters. This will be because the fast oxidative glycolytic muscle fibers fatigue at a slower rate, so it would be used for a slightly longer distance than 100 meters. So, for example, 400 meters we just said. There's no real difference in men and women's rate that they can create these muscle fibers, though the difference is the somatotypes and whether the different genders have done the same amount of exercise throughout their life. So if a girl has been physically active throughout her whole life, and then a boy is never exercised, then obviously he may struggle, or he might suddenly pick up a lot of muscle as his body's quite shocked, and then the girl might struggle then to put on more as she's already got quite a bit of like muscle fibers and quite a lot of hyperplasia. Another adaptation is that tendon strength will increase. This is with anaerobic training because there's a greater force on the joints when taking part in anaerobic training. For example, greater force is exerted during a 100-meter sprint than a marathon. This means that over time tendons will become stronger. This will allow an athlete to deal with a greater amount of force placed on the joints, and will make joints more secure. This therefore will reduce the chance of injury when taking part in interval training or plyometrics, for example. So as you can see on the screen, Cristiano Ronaldo is there. Obviously his joints would be under a lot of pressure from jumping, because he can jump so high, but he's jumped over players before. So obviously his joints must be pretty strong to handle this. Proprioceptors detect changes in muscle length. These will then become more responsive due to the training, as they will be used during anaerobic training due to greater force exerted compared to aerobic training. This therefore creates a greater risk of muscle tearing due to the force placed on them, so proprioceptors need to be ready to protect muscles against any tears or damage. So like the knee tendon response, if you hit your knee and you kick forwards, it's the same sort of thing. Your proprioceptors have to be ready to detect those changes when you're exercising in anaerobic like situations, because then there's more chance of you picking up a little injury like that than just jogging. Neural pathways also become more effective. This will make reaction time quicker as the nerve transmissions are sent down the pathways quicker. This therefore means a person can react to something quicker. For example, a 100-meter sprinter will be able to have a better reaction time for the start of a race. The improved neural pathways will also allow for better coordination. This is because motor units will become more refined when contracting, making simple movements and complex movements easier and more comfortable. It will help a high jumper, as they need to coordinate the time they jump, and their reaction times need to be good for when they decide to jump. The athletes will see an increase in power they can generate from their muscle fibers. This is due to motor units controlling more muscle fibers. Therefore, when the muscle fibers contract, there is more muscle fibers contracting, greater force output. So this, for example, is very useful for a long jumper. So basically, when the long jumper's motor units contract, it can contract more muscle fibers, then it will create a greater force. Therefore, the motor units will contract, and many muscle fibers will contract to propel the jumper as far as they can. Okay, so moving on to energy systems. So enzyme production will improve due to anaerobic training. This allows an athlete to exercise without the enzymes being inhibited or depleted. For example, an increase in creatine kinase will allow an athlete to be able to resynthesize more ATP due to splitting of phosphocreatine. This will allow an athlete to work at their maximum workload for longer, as the creatine is being resynthesized quicker, and there's more of it being resynthesized. This will be very useful for a 200-meter runner, as they won't want to finish the race. They will want to finish the race without getting into their lactic acid system, because if they do, they'll have to change the intensity that they're working at. Therefore, the larger stores and quicker production of enzymes aids the athlete. Okay, so fuel source of ATP resynthesization also plays a role in an anaerobic athlete such as a 100-meter sprinter. This is because the athlete wants to use their PC stores through their whole race. If they can't, then they will have to slow down, obviously, so they want to use their creatine stores the whole way. Therefore, stores become larger due to interval training. Many athletes also take creatine supplements, so this is known as like creatine monohydrate. This increases stores through supplementation and is legal in the world of sports. Many people say that creatine can be dangerous, however there's no real evidence to suggest this, only some people say it is. Supplementation of creatine is great for athletes as it increases their stores even more, so therefore with the increase in their stores naturally and the increase through supplementation, they'll have more creatine. For example, when taking part in a 100-meter sprint, an athlete will want to use their creatine system. This is because it allows them to work at a very high intensity. If they have to use their lactic acid system, they cannot work at the same high intensity, therefore are slow and will have to slow down before the end of the race. Therefore, they will want to stay within their PC system, so phosphocreatine system, throughout the race. For an athlete to do this, they will need large stores of creatine. This will increase due to anaerobic training, such as interval training, and will increase even more through supplementation. As an athlete trains anaerobically, they will build up a larger tolerance to lactic acid and OBLA. This is because of an athlete getting used to the feeling of lactic acid and being able to work with that sort of pain. The athlete will also have greater stores of creatine, so will experience lactic acid later than normal. The athlete will also have a greater OBLA and will start to fatigue later than normal as enzyme production has increased, causing lactic acid to inhibit the production of enzymes later on in the training session. From the Wingate graphs on the screen here, you can see the pre and post data. So here is pre and here is post. Post data, the athlete can exert more force, as you can see. This is due to increase in the muscle fibers. The athlete can also sustain the high intensity for longer periods of time. So you can see it does decrease, but it's not decreasing as rapidly as this one. And then it sort of goes all funny at the end. This is because the muscle fibers are used to working. They're used to working with lactic acid, and the lactic acid system kicks in later than usual because of the greater productions of enzymes and larger stores of ATP through supplementation and natural causes. Basal metabolic rate is the rate of which you burn off food and calories eaten. So if you ate 2,000 calories and you burn 2,000 calories in a training session, you will have burned off all your calories. Whilst training, an athlete will burn more calories. This is because they're using as fuels and are used for recovery. So like fats are used when you're training. Therefore, an athlete will need to eat more to get more calories in, so they don't become hungry and tired and have no energy stores left. Okay, so skeletal adaptation. Bone density will change due to anaerobic training. This will allow an athlete to put more pressure on the bone with less risk of injury. The bone density will increase due to osteoblasts. Osteoblasts synthesize bone, allowing it to become stronger and denser. The athlete will then be able to exert more force from the joints and limbs, as the bones will be able to handle more force. For example, an athlete taking part in shot put will be able to exert more force on the shot put due to denser bones. Range of movement will also be another adaptation. This will increase. So this will allow an athlete to move in different positions. This is because of the joints becoming easier to move due to the training using the joints. They get used to the different movements. Due to the greater range of movement, an athlete will then be able to use the range of movement to exert more power. So for example, during a long jump, if an athlete has greater range of movement in their legs, then they'll be able to exert more power if they have a greater knee bend. Due to anaerobic training, an athlete will have an increase in thicker cartilage. This means that bones are secure along with joints. The thicker the cartilage, this helps to support the bones and joints so they do not snap or the bone rubs against the joint. The synovial fluid helps to keep the cartilage healthy, and therefore the athlete can work harder on these joints as they're protected. If the cartilage is not healthy, then it can cause osteoarthritis. This is where the joints become stiff and tight and you don't have the movement. This reduces the range of movement, and then an athlete cannot exert the same force as they don't have the range of movement. Ligaments also become stronger with training. This means ligaments support the joints and hold them in place. If a ligament was to snap, then it could cause a serious injury. Having stronger ligaments allows an athlete to exert more force as the joints are supported and not in danger of joint damage. Therefore, the athlete can exert more force without the worry of getting joints damaged.